The chamber was vast enough to swallow starships whole. Ambassador Chen Rodriguez stood alone at the center of the circular floor, surrounded by 47 elevated platforms that held the representatives of the Galactic Council. Each platform glowed with soft light, illuminating the alien forms that sat in judgment. Some had scales, others had fur or chitinous shells. A few existed as energy beings contained in specialized suits. All of them looked down at the single human woman with expressions that ranged from pity to contempt. Chen had walked into this chamber countless times over the past 15 years. She had celebrated trade agreements here, negotiated cultural exchanges, and defended humanity's actions with patience and diplomacy. She had truly believed that humanity had found its place among the stars. Today, she learned how wrong she had been. Counselor Vexrath rose from his platform, his four arms spreading wide in a gesture that looked ceremonial but felt threatening. His species, the Zithani, had been part of the council for over 60,000 years. His carapace gleamed black and purple under the lights, and his compound eyes reflected Chen's image 1,000 times over. Ambassador Rodriguez. Vexrath's voice echoed through the translation devices embedded in the walls. We have reviewed the evidence presented over the past 3 cycles. The council has reached its decision. Chen kept her face neutral, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Behind her, hidden from view, she knew Admiral Sarah Kowalski watched through a secure holocom link. The entire human government was watching. Billions of people across 30 star systems waited to hear their fate. Humanity, Vexrath continued, has been part of the Galactic Council community for 50 standard years. In that time, you have expanded at an unprecedented rate. You have colonized 30 systems. You have built military vessels at a pace that alarms many of our members. Your culture celebrates competition, conflict, and individual achievement over collective harmony. Another counselor, a floating jellyfish-like being named Sora Lin, added her voice. Your species has made remarkable contributions, Ambassador. Your music, your literature, your scientific insights have enriched us all, but your aggressive expansion cannot continue unchecked. Chen finally spoke, her voice steady despite the fury building inside her. We have broken no laws. We have honored every treaty. Our expansion has been into unclaimed space, and our military exists only for defense. Everything we have done falls within the rights granted to all council members. Technically correct, Vexrath said, and Chen heard the dismissal in his tone. However, the council exists not merely to enforce laws but to maintain stability. Your species threatens that stability simply by being what you are. In 500 years, most species claim 10 to 15 systems. You have taken 30 and 50 years. If this pattern continues, where will you stop? At 100 systems? 1,000? Other species had thousands of years of slower-than-light travel to develop caution, Chen argued. We discovered FTL technology through contact with you. Are we to be punished for learning quickly? For being efficient? A reptilian counselor named Kreshitar hissed softly. You speak of efficiency, but we see danger. Your entertainment glorifies war. Your history is written in blood. Even now, your ships patrol your borders with weapons powered and shields raised. You exist in a state of permanent readiness for conflict. Because we understand the universe is not always kind, Chen shot back. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Is that truly so terrible? Vexrath's mandibles clicked together, and what Chen had learned was annoyance. You do not understand. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for over 100,000 years. We have achieved this through careful balance, through gradual growth, through collective decision-making. Your species rejects these principles. You value individual liberty over group consensus. You compete when you should cooperate. You push boundaries when you should respect limits. The chamber filled with murmuring agreement from dozens of counselors. Chen looked around at faces that had once smiled at her, or at least made welcoming gestures. Now they looked away or met her gaze with something like fear. We have taken a vote, Vexrath announced. 43 members vote in favor of the measure. 4 vote against. The measure passes. Chen's blood turned to ice. What measure? Effective immediately, humanity is exiled from council space. All human vessels must depart within 30 standard days. All trade agreements are voided. All cultural exchanges are terminated. Humanity is forbidden from entering any council member's territory, forbidden from using the established jump gate network, and forbidden from contact with any species under council protection. The words hit Chen like physical blows. Around the chamber, holographic displays showed the map of known space. The vast majority glowed in the blue of Council territory. The tiny cluster of 30 human systems appeared in red at the edge, suddenly isolated and alone. "You cannot do this," Chen said, her voice shaking now. "We have families on your worlds, students in your universities. We have joint research projects, shared colonies, treaties that took years to negotiate. All humans will be given safe passage home," Sora Lin said, and at least she sounded regretful. "Personal belongings and research data will be returned. But the Council has spoken. This is for the good of galactic civilization." "For how long?" Chen demanded. "What are the terms for readmission?" Vexrath tilted his head. "When your species has matured, when you have learned to value stability over expansion, peace over preparedness, collective good over individual ambition, perhaps in a few centuries we will revisit this matter. Perhaps by then isolation will have taught you the wisdom of our ways." Chen understood then. They expected humanity to wither without access to galactic trade and technology. They thought humans would stagnate, trapped in their 30 systems, unable to expand further without the jump gate network. They believed that in a few hundred years humanity would come crawling back, begging for readmission on whatever terms the Council demanded. She took a deep breath and straightened her spine. When she spoke, her voice carried across the chamber with absolute clarity. "You call yourselves wise, but you are cowards. You see something different and call it dangerous. You see ambition and call it aggression. You have built a civilization on stagnation, where every species must fit into the same mold, move at the same slow pace, think the same careful thoughts. We do not fit your mold, so you cast us out." Vexrath's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You prove our point with your hostile words." "These are not hostile words," Chen said. "These are honest words. You want to know what humanity will do, isolated and alone? We will survive. We will adapt. We will build. And we will do it without you. Without your permission, without your ancient rules and your fearful restrictions. You think you are teaching us a lesson. You are right. But not the lesson you intend." She turned slowly, looking at each counselor in turn. "You are teaching us that we can only rely on ourselves. That the galaxy is not ready for partnership, only domination and submission. You are teaching us that different is not welcome here. Thank you for the lesson. We will not forget it." Admiral Kowalski's voice crackled in Chen's hidden earpiece. "Chen, the fleet is ready. Give the word and we will show them what our weapons can do." Chen sub-vocalized her response, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "No, we leave with dignity. But start preparing Project Independence. They want us gone. We will go so far they will never see us coming." She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. At the door she paused and looked back one final time. "You will regret this," she said simply. "All of you." The door sealed behind her, cutting off the sight of the Galactic Council. Chen allowed herself one moment of weakness, leaning against the wall as her hands shook. Then she activated her communicator. "This is Ambassador Rodriguez to all human vessels and installations. Begin immediate withdrawal from Council space. We have 30 days. Make them count. And send a message to Earth. Tell them we are coming home and we have work to do." The exile had begun. 25 years had passed since the exile, and Dr. James Okonkwo stood before a window that looked out into the endless dark between stars. His reflection stared back at him, older now, with gray threading through his hair and lines carved deep around his eyes. Behind him, the research station hummed with activity, as dozens of scientists worked on equations that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. "You should get some sleep," James, his assistant Maya Chen said, walking up beside him with 2 cups of coffee. She was the daughter of the famous ambassador, and she had inherited her mother's determination. "You have been awake for 30 hours. Sleep can wait," James said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "We are close, Maya, I can feel it. The math is almost complete. The early years after exile had been hard. Humanity had returned to its 30 systems to find itself cut off from everything it had grown used to. No alien trade goods, no access to the jump gate network that connected the galaxy, no new technology flowing in from species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. The Council had expected humanity to collapse under the weight of isolation. They had been wrong. Instead of collapsing, humanity had done what it always did when faced with impossible odds. It adapted. It innovated. It survived. The first 5 years had been the hardest. Human colonies rationed food and resources. Factories that had relied on alien materials found Earth-based substitutes. Scientists studied every piece of alien technology humanity had brought home, taking it apart piece by piece to understand how it worked. Then they made it better. Without the Council's endless regulations about what technology was safe and what was forbidden, human innovation exploded. The Council had always claimed its rules were for the good of all species, to prevent dangerous developments. Humanity discovered the rules were really about keeping newer species from advancing too quickly, from threatening the established order. "Tell me where we are," Maya said, pulling up a holographic display that showed complex mathematical formulas floating in the air. James pointed to a section of the equations. The Council's jump gates work by creating stable wormholes between fixed points. It is effective but limited. You can only go where gates have been built, and building new gates requires Council approval. They control all movement through the galaxy. "And our solution?" Maya asked, though she already knew. She just wanted to hear him say it. "We do not use wormholes," James said, his excitement building. "We fold space itself. We create a bubble around the ship that exists slightly outside normal spacetime. Inside the bubble, physics works differently. The ship can travel faster than light without actually breaking the light speed barrier, because it is not moving through normal space. It is surfing on a wave of compressed and expanded space." Maya smiled. "Alcubierre drive theory. Humans theorized it centuries ago, long before we met the Council. Theory, yes, but we could never build it, because it required exotic matter and energy levels we could not produce. Then we studied the power cores from Council ships and realized they had the technology all along. They just never thought to use it this way. They had their jump gates and saw no reason to look for alternatives." The door to the lab opened and Admiral Sarah Kowalski walked in, now much older but still carrying herself with military precision. She had become humanity's voice in the years since Chen Rodriguez retired. "Dr. Okonkwo, I heard you called for me. Is it ready?" James nodded slowly. "We need to run tests, but yes, Admiral. I believe we can build a working prototype within 6 months. Within a year, we could have a fleet of ships that can travel anywhere in the galaxy without needing the Council's gates." The implications hung in the air like electricity before a storm. Humanity would no longer be trapped. They could explore in any direction, claim new systems, expand beyond the Council's reach. They would be truly free. "There is more," Maya said, pulling up another display. "Captain Santos returned from her exploration mission last week. She found something." The display showed a star system with 3 habitable planets. One of them showed clear signs of civilization. Cities, agriculture, radio signals, but no space travel yet. "The Kresh," Maya continued. "A reptilian species about 200 years away from developing their own FTL capability. Captain Santos made contact, following the first contact protocols we developed. The Kresh leaders asked a question that Captain Santos said she will never forget." Admiral Kowalski leaned forward. "What question?" "They asked if we came to conquer them or to help them. When Captain Santos asked why those were the only options, the Kresh leader said that their planet had been surveyed by Council scouts 50 years ago. The Council determined the Kresh were not ready for contact and marked their system as off-limits until they developed space travel on their own. But the Kresh detected the Council ships. They have spent 50 years knowing they are not alone, knowing someone is out there watching them, and they could do nothing but wait." James felt anger rising in his chest. The Council left them in fear for 50 years. "It gets worse," Maya said quietly. "The Council protocols say that once a species develops FTL on their own, they are judged by how they developed it. If they created it through warfare and conflict, like humanity did during our world wars, the Council considers them dangerous. If they develop it peacefully over centuries, they are welcomed. It is a test the Council does not tell anyone about." Admiral Kowalski's jaw tightened. "They set species up to fail, make them paranoid by letting them detect scout ships, then judge them for being militaristic when they respond to the implied threat." "Captain Santos told the Kresh everything," Maya said. "About the Council, about humanity's exile, about our plans. She offered them a choice. Wait for the Council and hope for acceptance, or join humanity in building something new. Something based on partnership, not judgment." "And?" the Admiral asked. Maya smiled. "They want to join us. They call Captain Santos the Truthbringer. They are already working on designs for ships based on specifications we provided. In 10 years, the Kresh will have their own space fleet, and they will fly alongside humans as equals. James saw the pieces falling into place. Humanity was not just surviving exile. They were building something the Council had never imagined. A coalition based on mutual respect, on sharing technology freely, on helping younger species rise up rather than keeping them down. How many other species are out there like the Kresh? He wondered aloud. How many have been surveyed and abandoned? How many are waiting for someone to offer them a hand instead of a test? Admiral Kowalski pulled up a star chart showing the region of space beyond human territory, away from the Council. Our scouts have identified 37 pre-spaceflight civilizations within range. All of them are beyond Council territory, in regions they have marked as low priority. The Council is so large and bureaucratic that they survey slowly, catalog everything, and then do nothing for centuries. We could reach all of them, Maya said. With the new FTL drive, we could make contact, offer alliance, help them develop safely. In a generation, we could have 50 allied species, all of them grateful that someone reached out instead of watching from afar. James looked at the Admiral. Is that the plan? Build an alliance network to rival the Council? Kowalski shook her head. Not rival, surpass. The Council thinks in terms of control and hierarchy. We will think in terms of cooperation and growth. Every species we help will help others in turn. The network will expand exponentially while the Council stagnates. And we will do it all in the dark, outside their space where they cannot see us rising. She pulled up an image that made James's breath catch. It was a proposed station design, massive beyond anything humanity had built before. This is Project Unity, a mobile space station that will serve as the capital of what we are calling the Terran Coalition. Not an empire, not a kingdom, but a coalition of equals. Humans and our allies sharing technology, defending each other, exploring together. When do we start? Maya asked. We already have, the Admiral said. The first components are being built in orbit around Mars. Captain Santos is recruiting exploration teams from every human colony. And Dr. Okonkwo, your FTL drive will be the key that unlocks everything. Without it, we are limited. With it, we are unstoppable. James turned back to the window looking out at the stars. 25 years ago, the Council had tried to bury humanity in isolation. Instead, they had freed humanity from outdated rules and fearful limitations. They had given humanity the gift of necessity, and necessity had made humans innovate faster than ever before. The Council thought they were teaching us to be humble, James said softly. They were teaching us to be independent. They wanted us to beg for readmission. They will get something very different. Admiral Kowalski stood beside him, and together they looked at the endless dark that was no longer a prison, but a frontier. They will get the truth, she said, that humanity does not need them, that humanity never needed them, and that the galaxy is big enough for more than one way of doing things. James smiled and returned to his work. There were equations to solve, engines to build, and a future to create. The dark years were ending. The age of the Terran Coalition was beginning. The Council emergency session had been called in the middle of the night cycle, and Councillor Vexrath was not happy about it. He climbed onto his platform in the great chamber, his aged carapace creaking slightly with each movement. 75 years had passed since the exile of humanity, and Vexrath had risen to the position of senior counselor. He had expected to spend his final years managing the slow, stable machinery of galactic governance. Instead, he faced a crisis no one had predicted. This session will come to order, he announced, his voice carrying less strength than it once had. Councillor Irian has requested emergency assembly. The floor recognizes the counselor from Andara. Irian floated forward, her energy form pulsing with agitation inside her containment suit. She had been one of the 4 who voted against humanity's exile all those decades ago. Now she looked vindicated, though Vexrath would never admit it. 3 days ago, Irian began, a council patrol vessel disappeared along the border of the dead zone. That was what they called the region where humanity had been exiled, though officially it was designated as quarantine space. This is the 17th disappearance in the past 2 standard years. Vexrath clicked his mandibles dismissively. Ships go missing. Space is dangerous. Pirates, navigation errors, equipment failures. This is not unusual. It is unusual when the disappearances follow a pattern, Irian countered. She projected a holographic map, showing the locations of missing ships. They formed a rough circle around the border between Council and human space. It is unusual when pirate bases in the region suddenly go silent. It is unusual when slaver operations that have existed for centuries vanish without a trace. A murmur ran through the assembled counselors. Slavery was technically illegal in council space, but the council had always looked the other way when it happened in the outer regions. The species involved were not members after all. It was not the council's concern if non-members preyed on each other. Perhaps someone is cleaning up the border regions, suggested Councillor Morath, a feline species known for their pragmatism. Should we not be grateful? I would be grateful, Irian said, if I knew who was doing it and why. 2 weeks ago we got our first answer. She projected another image. It showed a damaged council ship, its hull scarred by weapons fire. The survey vessel Infinite Grace encountered an unknown ship while mapping a new system. The vessel was unlike anything in our database. It was faster than our ships, more maneuverable, and armed with weapons that disabled the Grace's shields in seconds. Pirates with stolen technology, Vexrath said, though he felt the first stirring of unease. The unknown ship did not attack, Irian continued. It hailed the Grace and delivered a message. Only one message, repeated in all council languages. Stay out of unaligned space. This is your only warning. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Unaligned space was the term for regions not claimed by council members. It had always been free for exploration and colonization, though the council moved slowly enough that vast regions remained unmapped. Who delivers warnings to the Galactic Council? Demanded a large, bear-like counselor. We are the authority in this galaxy. We decide who goes where. That is the question I have been asking, Irian said. She pulled up more data, all of it fragmentary and frustrating. Our intelligence services have been investigating. They found evidence of a protection network operating in unaligned space. Primitive species report being defended from raiders by what they call ghost ships. Trading posts speak of swift vessels that appear from nowhere, destroy threats, and vanish again. And in every report, every sighting, there is one consistent detail. She magnified an image taken from a grainy sensor recording. It showed part of a ship's hull, and painted on that hull was a symbol that made Vexrath's breathing tubes constrict. It was a blue and green sphere. Earth. Impossible, Vexrath whispered. The humans were cut off. Without access to jump gates, they cannot expand. They should still be trapped in their original systems, struggling to maintain what they have. Should be, Irian agreed. But 3 months ago something happened that confirms our worst fears. The Korthax Empire attempted to conquer a primitive world called Velsha. The Korthax are council members in good standing. They have every right to expand their territory through conquest as their culture dictates. Vexrath knew where this was going and dreaded it. The Korthax were a warrior culture, aggressive and powerful. They had joined the council precisely because it gave them legal protection for their expansion. The council tolerated them because they were useful, and because they had been members for thousands of years. A Korthax battle fleet of 40 ships entered the Velsha system, Irian continued, her voice taking on a hard edge. They broadcasted demands for surrender. The Velshans, who barely had chemical rockets, could do nothing but watch their doom approach. Then something else arrived. She displayed the sensor logs from the Korthax flagship. The data was chaotic, filled with readings that made no sense according to standard physics. Ships appeared from nowhere, not from jump gates but from empty space itself, as if they had torn holes in reality. 10 unknown vessels engaged 40 Korthax warships. The battle lasted 17 minutes. Every Korthax ship was disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Their weapons were melted, their engines were fused, but life support remained intact. Then the unknown fleet sent a message to the Korthax commander. A voice played through the chamber's speakers. It was human, speaking in perfect council standard. You came to conquer those weaker than you. This is no longer permitted. Leave this space and do not return. If you attack defenseless worlds again, we will not be so gentle. One Korthax destroyer managed to escape, Irian said. Its commander reported that the unknown ships bore the markings of Earth. He described weapons and shields beyond anything in the Council's arsenal. He described ships that moved without jump gates, that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. And he described something else. She paused for effect. The unknown fleet was not all human ships. Some were of designs he did not recognize. The commander believes the humans have allies. Non-council species working together. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Vexrath felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. "This is not possible," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We cut them off. We monitored their territory. We would have seen expansion. We monitored the 30 systems we knew they controlled," Irian corrected. "We watched the borders of the dead zone. But if they developed FTL technology that does not require jump gates, if they expanded in directions we were not watching, into regions we considered low priority?" She let the implication hang. Counselor Morath spoke carefully. "Are you suggesting that humanity has built a rival power in the 75 years since exile? That they have not only survived but thrived? I am saying we made a terrible mistake," Irian said bluntly. "We exiled a species for being too ambitious, too fast-growing, too innovative. We tried to cage them. Instead, we freed them from our regulations, our oversight, our slow bureaucracy. We gave them a reason to distrust the Council and a motivation to build something separate from us. And now we are seeing the results." Vexarath wanted to argue, to dismiss these concerns as paranoia. But he had not become senior counselor by ignoring evidence. The pattern was clear. Human ships were operating far from their exiled territory. They were protecting non-council species. They were building alliances. And their technology had advanced beyond the councils. "What do you propose?" he asked Irian, conceding leadership of this discussion to her. "We need information," she said. "Real information, not censor ghosts and survivor testimony. We need to send a diplomatic mission to Earth. We need to open communication and find out what humanity has built in the years we ignored them." "And if they refuse contact?" another counselor asked. "If they consider us enemies now?" "Then we have a serious problem," Irian said. "Because a species that can defeat a Korthax fleet without destroying a single ship, a species that can move through space without jump gates, a species that has convinced other races to join them, that species is not one we can ignore or dismiss." Vexarath thought about the young human ambassador who had stood in this chamber 75 years ago. He remembered her final words. "You will regret this. All of you. We will send a diplomatic mission," he decided. "But carefully. We will request contact, not demand it. We will approach as equals, not as authorities. And we will be prepared for the possibility that humanity is no longer the minor species we exiled. They may have become something far more significant." The vote was called. This time it was unanimous. The Council would reach out to humanity. But as Vexarath left the chamber, he could not shake the feeling that they were no longer in control of events. Humanity had spent 75 years in the dark beyond the Council's sight. What had they become in that darkness? What had they built? He feared they were about to find out, and that the answer would reshape the galaxy forever. The Council had tried to teach humanity a lesson about patience and caution. Instead, humanity had learned that the Council was not necessary, not inevitable, and perhaps not even wanted. The ghosts were real, and they wore the symbol of Earth. The neutral station hung in empty space, exactly halfway between Council territory and what the Council still called the Dead Zone. It had been built centuries ago as a meeting place for species that did not trust each other enough to meet on home ground. Today it would serve that purpose again. But the circumstances were very different from anything the station had seen before. Ambassador Kenji Tanaka stood at the viewing window of the human delegation's quarters, watching Council ships arrive through the jump gate network. 6 heavy cruisers bristling with weapons but flying with shields down in a gesture of peace. It was quite a show of force for what was supposed to be a diplomatic meeting. "They are afraid," said President Elena Volkov, walking up behind him. She was Earth's leader, elected by the combined votes of 300 human worlds and 40 allied species. "They should be." Kenji turned to face her. He was Chen Rodriguez's chosen successor, trained by the legendary ambassador herself before her death 10 years ago. He had inherited her patience, her diplomatic skill, and her bone-deep understanding that the Council had made a mistake it could never take back. "We should not go into this meeting seeking to frighten them further," he said carefully. "Our goal is recognition and open borders, not conquest or revenge." "I know the goal, Ambassador," Elena said with a slight smile. "But they need to understand that the balance of power has shifted. 100 years ago, they dictated terms to us. Today we negotiate as equals, more than equals." A soft chime indicated that the Council delegation had arrived at the station. Kenji straightened his uniform, bearing the symbol of the Terran Coalition on his chest. The blue and green Earth surrounded by 40 smaller symbols representing the allied species. It was a statement in itself. The meeting room was circular, with seats arranged around a central holographic display. The council delegation filed in first. Vexrath led them, ancient now, his carapace dulled with age. Behind him came Irian and 5 other counselors representing different species and factions. They stopped when they saw the human delegation. Kenji had brought only 5 people, but the message was clear. President Volkov sat at the center. To her right was Admiral Marcus Chen Rodriguez, grandson of the original ambassador. To her left was Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead scientist behind the Coalition's technology. Flanking them were 2 representatives from allied species. One was Ambassador Kreshtal of the Kresh, the reptilian species that had been humanity's first ally. The other was a Felnari, a species unknown to the Council, their blue skin marked with bioluminescent patterns. "You brought aliens," Vexrath said, and there was surprise in his voice. "We brought allies," Elena corrected. "Members of the Terran Coalition, here to observe these proceedings. I hope that is not a problem?" The Council delegation exchanged glances. They had no grounds to object. This was a neutral station, and the meeting had no established protocols beyond basic diplomacy. They all took their seats. The holographic display remained dark, waiting to be activated. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched heavy with a century of history. Finally, Irian broke the ice. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, we thank you for agreeing to this meeting. It has been too long since our people spoke." 100 years, Kenji said, "since you exiled us and forbade all contact." "Yes, it has been quite long." Vexrath shifted uncomfortably. "We believed at the time that isolation would help humanity develop in a more measured way. We see now that our approach may have been flawed." "Flawed," Elena repeated, her voice cold. "You tried to cage us. You thought we would wither without you, that we would come crawling back in a few centuries broken and desperate. Instead, we thrived. We built something you never imagined we could build." She activated the holographic display. It showed a star map, but not the map the Council knew. This map showed 500 systems glowing in the colors of the Terran Coalition. They spread out from humanity's original 30 systems like a growing tree, branching in every direction except toward Council space. The Council delegates stared in shock. 500 systems. In 100 years, humanity had expanded from 30 to 500. It was impossible by Council standards. Most species took 5,000 years to claim that much space. "How?" Vexrath whispered. Dr. Kim smiled. "You want to know our secret? We stopped following your rules. The Council claims its regulations are for safety, but they are really about control. You limit how fast species can grow, how advanced their technology can become, where they can explore. You maintain stability by ensuring no one can challenge the established order." She pulled up technical displays that made the Council scientists lean forward in disbelief. "We developed FTL travel that does not require jump gates. We can go anywhere, anytime, without asking permission. Our ships fold space itself, traveling faster than yours while using less energy. We have quantum entanglement communication across any distance, instant and unhackable. Our medical technology extends lifespans by centuries. Our agriculture can feed trillions, and we share all of it freely with our allies." "Freely?" Councillor Morath asked, suspicion clear in her voice. "You give away advanced technology?" "We do," President Volkov confirmed. "Because we do not view other species as competitors or threats. We view them as partners. Every species that joins the Coalition receives full access to our technology and knowledge. In return, they share theirs. The Coalition grows stronger with each new member, not weaker." Ambassador Kreshtal spoke for the first time, his voice a deep rumble. "The humans found my people 70 years ago. We were primitive, barely understanding the stars above us. The Council had surveyed us and left us alone, marked us for future evaluation. The humans came and told us the truth. They explained the Council, explained the tests we would face, explained that we would be judged for how we developed. Then they offered us an alternative. Join them, share knowledge, grow together. My people did not hesitate. We now have 42 member species," Elena continued. "Some were pre-spaceflight when we found them. Others were exploring their own systems. A few were old civilizations that had stagnated, trapped by their own traditions. All of them chose to join the Coalition because we offered them something the Council never did. Respect, partnership, and the freedom to grow at their own pace." Vexrath finally found his voice. "You are building an empire." "No," Kenji said firmly. "The Coalition is not an empire. We do not conquer. We do not rule. Every member species maintains full sovereignty over their own worlds. We vote on coalition matters as equals. A species with 3 worlds has the same voice as humanity with 300. This is not an empire. It is something the Council never imagined. A true alliance. Irian studied the displays, her energy form pulsing rapidly. Your technology is centuries ahead of ours. Your expansion rate is unprecedented. Your alliance structure is radical. You have achieved in 100 years what the Council has not managed in 100,000. How? Because we had to. Admiral Chen Rodriguez said, speaking for the first time. You exiled us, cut us off, left us to die. We had no choice but to innovate or perish. You taught us that we could not rely on the galactic community, so we built our own community, one based on cooperation instead of bureaucracy, on merit instead of seniority, on action instead of endless debate. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. My grandmother stood in your chamber a century ago and warned you that you would regret exile. You are here because you have finally realized she was right. You see our ships on your borders. You see your military expeditions turned back. You see species choosing us over you. And you are afraid. Should we be? Vexrath asked quietly. Afraid of you? President Volkov stood and everyone in the room focused on her. That depends entirely on you. The Terran Coalition has no interest in conquest or revenge. We have no interest in destroying the Council or replacing it. But we will not rejoin it. We will not accept restrictions on our growth or oversight of our technology. We will not abandon our allies or submit to your authority. She gestured to the star map. This is our proposal, full mutual recognition. The Coalition and the Council acknowledge each other as sovereign entities. Open borders for trade and travel, cultural exchange programs, shared scientific research on a voluntary basis. We can coexist peacefully, even cooperate, but as equals, not as subordinates seeking approval from their betters. And if the Council refuses, Morath asked, then we continue as we have been, Elena said with a shrug. We stay in our space, you stay in yours. But species will continue to choose. Every year we make contact with new civilizations. Every year we offer them the same choice we offered the Kresh. Join the Coalition or wait for the Council. More and more are choosing us because we offer them a hand up, not a series of tests and restrictions. She activated another display. It showed 3 Council member species. These 3 have already sent secret delegations to Coalition space. They are considering leaving the Council to join us. We have not encouraged this, but we will not refuse them if they choose to leave. The galaxy is changing, counselors. The question is whether you change with it or cling to the old ways until they crumble. The room fell silent again. Kenji watched the Council delegates process what they had heard. 10 years had passed since the meeting at the neutral station, and the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship Unity, watching the battle unfold through holographic displays that showed space in 3 dimensions around them. Enemy contact in Sector 7, his tactical officer reported. 23 ships, unknown configuration. They are targeting the colony on Varus III. Marcus studied the enemy vessels. They were unlike anything in the Council or Coalition database. Sleek, black, and moving in perfect formation, they had appeared 3 months ago at the edge of known space, emerging from the galactic void beyond even Coalition territory. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked, destroying everything in their path. The Ravagers, the Coalition intelligence services had named them, an extragalactic invasion force that made the old Council look gentle by comparison. Launch all fighters, Marcus ordered. Heavy cruisers form defensive perimeter around the colony. Dreadnoughts target their command ship. Let's show them why you don't invade Coalition space. The battle erupted across the void. Coalition ships moved with practiced precision, their advanced drives allowing maneuvers that seemed to violate physics. Fighters swarmed the enemy vessels, their weapons cutting through black hulls. The dreadnoughts fired massive particle beams that could crack planets, but the Ravagers were no easy prey. They fought back with weapons that tore holes in space itself, with shields that absorbed incredible punishment. Ships on both sides exploded in brilliant flashes of light and debris. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission, his communications officer said. Council frequency. It is the Urian herself. Marcus had Urian's face appear on a secondary screen. The energy being looked exhausted, her light flickering irregularly within her containment suit. Behind her he could see the chaos of a damaged ship. Admiral Chen Rodriguez, Irian said, her voice tight with stress. The Council formally requests assistance. Ravager forces have breached our territory. We have lost 3 systems already. Our fleets are in retreat. Marcus felt no satisfaction at hearing the Council beg for help. The Ravagers were a threat to everyone. Transmit your fleet positions. Coalition forces will coordinate with yours. We end this threat together. Relief flooded Irian's face. Thank you, Admiral. The Council owes you a debt. We can discuss debts after we survive, Marcus said. Chen Rodriguez out. The battle for Varus III lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 17 Ravager ships floated as dead hulks, and 6 more had retreated into dark space. The Coalition had lost 12 ships and 3,000 crew. It was a victory, but a costly one. Over the next 3 months, Coalition and Council forces fought side by side in a dozen systems. Old grudges were forgotten in the heat of battle. Human pilots saved Council ships. Council engineers repaired Coalition vessels. Warriors who had viewed each other as rivals learned to trust each other with their lives. Marcus saw the transformation firsthand. In one battle above a gas giant, a Council destroyer positioned itself between a Ravager dreadnought and a damaged Coalition cruiser, sacrificing itself to buy time for evacuation. In another, a Coalition medical ship ventured into a radiation zone to rescue Council survivors, suffering heavy contamination to save species that had once voted for humanity's exile. The war reached its turning point above the Council capital world itself. 200 Ravager ships emerged from dark space intent on decapitating galactic civilization. 300 Coalition ships met them, along with everything the Council could muster. Councillor Vexarath, now so ancient he could barely move, watched the battle from the Council chambers deep beneath the planet's surface. Beside him sat President Volkov, evacuated there when her flagship took critical damage. Your people are dying to defend us, Vexarath said quietly, watching the holographic display show Coalition ships forming a defensive line. After everything the Council did to humanity, you came when we called. Elena's face was grim as she watched a Coalition carrier explode, taking 2,000 souls with it. We came because it was right, because when you face extinction, old grudges mean nothing, because we are better than what you thought we were. We were wrong about humanity, Vexarath admitted, his voice heavy with age and regret. I was wrong. I spent my life believing the Council's way was the only way, that slow growth and careful control were the only path to stability. I saw humanity's ambition and called it dangerous. I never considered that it could be directed toward building instead of destroying. The battle raged for 18 hours. Ships from 40 Coalition species and 23 Council species fought together, their formation coordinated by a joint command staff that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. When the last Ravager ship fell or fled, 500 vessels remained operational out of the 1,000 that had begun the battle. But the capital held. The heart of galactic civilization survived. In the aftermath, as repair crews worked around the clock and hospitals overflowed with wounded from dozens of species, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Council chambers. For the first time in its 100,000-year history, the Galactic Council opened its doors to non-members as equals. Ambassador Kenji Tanaka stood before the assembled delegates, but this time he was not alone. Around him stood ambassadors from the Terran Coalition, representing species that had never bowed to Council authority. And around them stood Council members, some who had viewed humans as dangerous outcasts just 10 years ago. The war continues, Kenji began. The Ravagers have not been defeated, only pushed back. They will return. When they do, we must be ready. Together. Irian, now the senior surviving Council member, spoke next. The old Council is dead. It died when we realized we could not face this threat alone. What remains is a question: what do we build to replace it? The debate lasted for weeks. Dozens of proposals were put forward, argued over, refined. Some Council members clung to the old ways, insisting the Council structure had served for millennia and should be preserved. Others, particularly younger species and those who had fought alongside Coalition forces, pushed for radical change. In the end, it was Vexarath who proposed the solution that broke the deadlock. The ancient counselor, who had once advocated for humanity's exile, stood before the assembly and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. I have lived for 300 years, he said, his voice amplified for all to hear. I have served the Council for 2 centuries. I believed in its mission, its structure, its rightness. But I was wrong. The Council was built on hierarchy, on older species guiding younger ones, on control disguised as protection. It created stability, yes, but it also created stagnation. He turned to look at the human delegation. When we exiled humanity, I believed we were protecting galactic civilization from a dangerous species. Instead, we set them free to show us what we could have been. They built something we never imagined. A coalition of equals, where species help each other rise instead of holding each other back. They did in 1 century what we failed to do in 100,000. They created not just stability but growth, not just peace but progress. He paused, gathering his strength. I propose we dissolve the Galactic Council. In its place, we form a new body, the Confederation of Free Worlds. No more hierarchy based on age. No more tests and trials for new species. No more exile for those who do not conform. Every world, every species, every nation that wishes to join does so as an equal. We vote as equals. We defend each other as equals. We grow together or fall together. The chamber erupted in debate. It took another month of negotiation, but eventually the vote was called. Of the original council members, 41 voted to dissolve the council and join the Confederation. 6 refused and departed to form their own independent confederacy. The Terran Coalition voted unanimously to merge with the new Confederation, sharing all technology and knowledge freely. On the day the Confederation of Free Worlds was officially founded, Ambassador Kenji Tanaka and Counselor Vexrath stood together on a platform broadcasting to trillions across thousands of worlds. Today, we begin something new, Kenji said. Not human or Zithani or Kresh or any single species, but all of us together. The Confederation stands on principles humanity learned during our exile: cooperation over competition, freedom over control, merit over seniority, and above all, the belief that different is not dangerous but valuable. Vexrath added his voice. The old council feared change and called it wisdom. The new Confederation embraces change and calls it growth. We have much to learn from each other. The humans will teach us innovation and adaptability. We will teach them patience and long-term thinking. Together, we will build something greater than either could achieve alone. The transition was not easy. Old habits and prejudices did not disappear overnight. Some species struggled with the concept of true equality, unused to having their voice carry the same weight as ancient civilizations. Others, freed from restrictions, grew too fast and faced economic crises. But the Confederation endured, adapting and learning as it went. 50 years later, the Confederation spanned 10,000 systems and included over 200 species. The Ravager threat had been contained,